Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I'm your host, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of just people-pleasing things with microphones because I'm running out of adjectives because I'm a ring announcer and cage announcer. And I'm joined this week, as I always am, by my two buddies who both bring the punditry of the mixed martial arts world to daring new heights. Allow me to introduce to you first, in New York, he's the man with the poster behind him, Marc Priaulx. What's up, buddy?
What is up, boys? We are tired. What else is new on this show? We had a snow day in New York today, which blew my mind because there was barely any fucking snow. Somehow they canceled school. We're turning into Atlanta over here. Yeah, so all the schedule changes that came with it, the me working while watching kids that came with it. One is sick. It's been a day, and it's fucking late already right now. So we're gonna try to power through this thing.
And now introducing in Florida, the Sunshine State, where there probably isn't a fleck of snow on the ground, a flake of snow. Omar Artola. What's up, my friend?
Not a single flake. Lots of droplets of water. Not a single flake of snow.
I heard it's been raining like crazy in Florida. Is that the case in Tampa?
Yeah, we've basically been getting the tail end of a lot of the storm snow shit that you've been getting. We've been getting the very tipped edge of it at the very back. So we've been getting a lot of that same wind, a lot of the rain, but
yeah, we have
obviously not the same cold and stuff.
This is our first.
It's been pretty. Yeah. It's been pretty chilly out here, to be honest, compared to what it normally is. There's a wind chill advisory out here, which is not particularly normal.
Wow.
But tomorrow, I think, to go to the gym, it'll be motherfucking 45 degrees. So that'll be fun.
Cry me a fucking river. It is 7 degrees in Michigan.
You chose to live in the American Siberia. That's not my problem.
It has been snowing in my town since last Friday, and I am not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. It has been snowing. The town had basically a town-wide snow day on Friday, even though it didn't really begin till Friday night. It snowed all weekend. It snowed on Monday, and it snowed today.
Dude,
so
we
I don't
need to
want to
come
hear
visit you. My kids are desperate for snow. The snow we got today.
No, I
we
hate
couldn't
it.
even make a snowman. We tried. It wouldn't stick. There wasn't enough. We haven't had a good snow in 3 years. No joke. They are. My little one doesn't even really know what it is.
We have a good snow, Mark, pretty much once a week here. Okay.
Yeah, we got to come visit.
We got sandcastles. We got a lot of sandcastles down here.
Bro, listen. Fall, not fall. Yeah. Spring, summer in Michigan, beautiful, awesome. Winter's long. Winter's hard. It's a lot of snow.
If you come on these 2 weekends in April, fucking tits
no, dude.
In Michigan.
Mike, are people freaking out about the Lions?
Lions are great this year, yes, and yes, they are. They are all besides themselves.
First time they've won a playoff game in what was it? Some insane amount of years.
Yeah, people Lions fans, and I work with a few of them, diehards. They are beside themselves with joy.
And then they got an amazing break where now they're playing the Buccaneers the next round, who they're going to be pretty big favorites over.
That's right.
I mean, that's also the kiss of death sometimes when you say that, but who knows?
That's true.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Well,
good for them.
Hey, you know who else is good this year? The Knicks, and I'm here for it. But this is not a basketball podcast, you guys. This is an MMA podcast, and that is why we have gathered for 128 consecutive weeks, pretty much. to talk about the sport that the three of us love and have been talking about for many years before the show even began. So here we go, boys. Tonight, we're going to talk about all of the fights from this past weekend's UFC Fight Night, Ankalaev versus Walker 2. We're going to throw a bunch of these fights into our lightning round. We're going to find out who rose, who fell in Marc's very own rankings that we call affectionately the Priaulx Rankings after him. Then we're going to jump over to Omar with our segment Inside the MMA Sphere. Find out from Omar what's going on in the world of MMA outside of the cages. And then we're going to look ahead to this coming weekend's pay-per-view UFC 297 Strickland versus Du Plessis. Oh my goodness. Before we get into any fight talk, though, guys, let us first thank our audience. If you're watching this right now on YouTube, thank you so much. We love each and every one of you guys, and I really mean that. Especially those of you who have been with us from the very beginning. Drop us a like, do all the free things, the bell, so that you never miss an episode. Subscribe to our channel if you've been liking what you've been watching. And of course, drop us a comment down below. If you like any of our takes, let us know down below. If you disagree with any of our takes, let us know down below. We want to hear your take. Boop. That's me giving you the boop on the nose, fellow MMA fans. But
Get
hey,
ready for some comments, boys, because if we are not unanimous on Dricus later, we are going to hear about it.
It's true. It's true. Hey, if you want audio only, we got you there. Find us wherever you get your podcast. Find us on social media at @andnew_MMA show on all the socials. Okay, let's do this. Gentlemen, this week, the name on the marquee has got to be Magomed Ankalaev, who this past weekend defeated Johnny Walker by knockout in the second round. Mark, let me start with you. In their main event, first round, it looked pretty even, I'd say. Second round, we know what happened. What were your thoughts?
If you didn't know, now you know. Magomed Ankalaev is really, really good, and he is going to be a big problem for Alex Pereira or Jamal Hill or anyone else in this entire division. He is high level everywhere. He just beat Johnny Walker without even considering wrestling, just to hammer that point home. And in the first round, it looked like he was going to need to wrestle because Johnny came out looking sharp. Like I loved how he walked Magomed down right away and tried to make him feel the pressure and feel the power that was coming at him. He really did start well. Like despite the loss, I think we are seeing the best version of Johnny Walker that we've seen. And early in that fight, I think he had everyone thinking like, man, Magomed is going to have to look to take this thing down and get Johnny off him because Johnny was really walking him down. But nope, he stayed completely calm. He was unfazed. He withstood it. He stayed in it so he could make his reads. He started chopping the leg, and then he just turned the tide entirely. And before that round was even over, it went from Johnny in the driver's seat to Magomed in the driver's seat. And then round two was the pendulum had fully swung. And the finish, my God, I mean, he dropped Johnny. You could see Johnny was still there and wanting to get up if he would have maybe had one or two more Mississippis. But he got hit with a nuke that just exploded his nose. I mean,
Yes.
Great accuracy on that kill shot from Magomed there. And again, he never wrestled. He just struck with the man, and it didn't take him more than a round and a half. He's frightening. I don't know what the weakness is.
Omar, let's bring you in here. What were your takeaways on that finishing sequence? In my eyes, it looked like Johnny got sort of out of the range that he wanted to be in, and Ankalaev capitalized on it. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we talked about it last week about Johnny Walker's approach now, having been at SBG and them trying to rein in the crazy with a little bit more patience and technique, but still trying to keep his crazy. And I think he did try to find a good balance of that in this fight. I think where it ended up going left for him was when he ended up riding the cage the entire time. And so what I mean by that is Ankalaev was essentially in the center, or at least at the very on the outside, with Johnny against the cage, just laterally moving against the cage. And it a lot of times never really came off of that side. and it just allowed Ankalaev to walk him down. And I think a lot of that ended up happening a lot more in the second round than it did in the first. But that was really the beginning of the end, and you could see Johnny Walker kind of, I want to say, beginning to be concerned about getting trapped along that fence. But it happened anyway, and I think it really, once he started trying to get out and started trying to move forward out of that fence range, I think that was when Ankalaev was able to land that shot, drop Johnny Walker, and then just completely explode his face.
Well, not in that first round, though, to your point, to kind of counter your point a little bit. In that first round, wasn't Johnny Walker the one who was kind of walking down Ankalaev? And then in the second round, it just seemed to kind of flip a 180, and Ankalaev made some kind of adjustment. I don't know. Somebody who knows striking and in cage generalship, I don't know if I'm using the right words there, way more than me could maybe answer this question. I don't know if it was a footwork thing or just a mentality switch that Ankalaev made. He came out, he said, I'm going to be the aggressor in this round. And it was Johnny Walker on the back foot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it very well might have just been the way that it started. It might have been his approach in the second round. He probably would have gotten some words, I'm assuming, from his coach in between rounds to not allow Johnny Walker to go first and not allow Johnny Walker to dictate the pace and probably things of that nature. So it seemed like he made obviously the right adjustment in the second round and took Johnny Walker's head.
But Mark, to your point also, just wanted to echo that. The most impressive thing of this fight is that Magomed Ankalaev did not even attempt a takedown. There was zero wrestling, and he knocked out Johnny Walker, who, by the way, looked so good in the first round. To your point again, and also to echo Omar's point, this is still the best Johnny Walker that I think we've seen. I totally agree with that. And that first round, he looks like, a giant, because he is. Much bigger than Ankalaev, in my opinion. And he was fighting in that first round in a way that was like, I thought that he was saying to Ankalaev with his body language in the cage, you're not going to hurt me, and I'm the one who's coming after you to hurt you.
Agree. I agree totally. And that's why I was so the more impressed with the fact that Magomed didn't feel like he had to change anything. Because I feel like watching it, it was like, man, this dude needs to shoot. He needs to clinch. He needs to do something because this isn't going how he wants it to go. And he, I guess, was like, through it all, was like, I'm totally fine. I'm making my reads. I'm safe here. He's not going to catch me. And like you said, I didn't rewatch it, so I haven't like broken it down to that level to try to see if it was a footwork thing or a timing thing or whatever it may have been. But he read something in there that allowed him to flip it and had him going first instead of Johnny going first.
Yeah, man. I know that. Does he still train out of Dagestan, Ankalaev? Is he living there as well as the other guys that are more team in like the Khabib circle?
I want to say, yeah. I think I know I've seen clips of him like popping up at other camps, but I think his main camp is still in Dagestan.
I just bring it up because I want to point out that on the same night as this fight with Ankalaev, over in the boxing world, Artur Beterbiev has now captured 3 out of 4 of the light heavyweight titles by knocking out his 20th opponent, and he is now 20-0 with 20 knockouts. Artur Beterbiev, also from Dagestan, and I know that Beterbiev trains out of Canada and lives in Canada, I believe, but he is Russian and Dagestani, and it's like, my man. My God, what is in the water over there, man? Over in Dagestan, and it also makes me think about Ankalaev, Beterbiev, Khabib, obviously, Makhachev, and all these other guys from this region. Like, what must their collective? There's got to be a website out there with somebody who's tracking all these guys' records, like
records by nationality.
No, I mean just these dudes, like these Dagestani guys.
Oh, I thought you were saying what is the overall record of Dagestani's like period?
I mean pretty much that's what I'm saying. Like if that exists out there, somebody leave us that in the comments or point us to that.
I think he actually trains in Chechnya for what it's worth, but he is Dagestani.
Ankalaev?
Yeah.
Or Beterbiev. Okay.
Oh, Ankalaev. Yeah.
My goodness. Okay, let's talk about where these two guys go from here, that being Magomed Ankalaev and Johnny Walker. Let's start with the winner here. Magomed Ankalaev. Remind me, who did he call out the champ right after this, Mark?
I don't know if he said a name. He definitely said, like, it's time for my title shot. I don't know if he specifically said Pereira's name. I want to say that he did not.
So let me throw it to you, Mark. Would you agree? Is it time for him to basically say, whatever's going to play out in front of me, I'm going to let it play out, and I'm not going to just take a fight because Dana tells me to. I'm going to wait for, this is my time for my title shot. Would you agree? Yay? Nay?
So yes, either that he should get it now or wait. Yeah, which I think is what you're asking.
Yeah.
In terms of the now, I keep hearing completely conflicting reports on Jamal Hill. One day I hear that him and Pereira is basically a done deal, and then the next day I hear that he's not going to be back until like September. So I don't know what is happening with Jamal Hill. If he's not ready, I think they should be throwing Pereira and Ankalaev on UFC 300. I don't see why not. I feel like they're still desperate for some big fights there.
Mm-hmm.
And that one is ready to go. You would think Ankalaev is ready to go. It's not like he took any big damage, and I think he absolutely deserves that shot. And then, yeah, even so, if, say, we were getting Pereira and Hill at UFC 300 instead, I think I am in the boat of that Ankalaev should just be the guy, and it should be discussed that night. The winner of this fight will be fighting Magomed Ankalaev.
Omar, agree, disagree? Other thoughts?
I mean, I definitely think Ankalaev at this point should fight for the belt. If it's not going to be Jamal Hill, it's got to be Ankalaev. I don't know what they're doing with this timeline. The timeline for light heavyweight has been a mess for a couple of years now. So hopefully they get it together and they do decide something, but it's got to be one or the other at this point.
Man, Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira. What a fight. And Ankalaev is not the biggest 205er, man. But he's so talented. He's just so good. He hasn't lost since Paul Craig. And he was winning most of that fight, wasn't he?
Oh, he dominated every single the whole fight until the last two Mississippi.
Yeah, man. Okay, let's talk about Johnny Walker here. Omar, give us a name of who would you want Walker to go up against next? This new and improved best version of Johnny Walker.
I think it's time for Khalil Roundtree to get a nice spot. I think they're right there in the rankings as it is. I think they're both 7 and 8, something like that. So I think that'd be a good fight.
Mark?
Now you have me looking how long ago that was. It was definitely mad long ago that Walker beat him.
Did they fight already?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
2018. But yeah, I mean, Khalil certainly deserves that rematch at this point. I almost feel like I don't want to I feel like Khalil should go past him now that he's coming off a loss.
Let's go, Khalil.
But I do see the thought process there. I'll say the winner of, so I want to say the winner of Dominic Reyes and Carlos Ulberg, but that's not until March 30th. So maybe that's too long of a wait. If it is, then I guess I'll say Volkan Ozdemir. I don't love it, but we've never seen it. They're right near each other.
That's true.
Makes sense.
I might like that one the best, actually. I feel like, I don't know. Because I've always liked Johnny Walker. I would not want him to fight Carlos Ulberg because I have a very high opinion of Ulberg. And I'd be worried. I would be worried for my man Johnny. But I don't know. This new and improved Johnny, this best version of Johnny that we've seen at SBG.
Still
Johnny and Khalil again would be really fun because it's an entirely different both of them.
Both of them, yes.
Totally. Neither guy really even resembles the guy that was fighting in 2018.
Okay, let's move on from this main event. Congrats to Magomed Ankalaev. Another huge win. His record stays excellent and pretty much unblemished.
Yeah, like we were saying, you take away 2 seconds, and this guy is an undefeated fighter.
It's true. Yeah, pretty much.
Although I guess you could say you take away 2 seconds about any knockout that ever happens also. So I guess that's not
true.
really so fair to say.
That's true. Okay. In the co-main event of this UFC fight night that went down at the UFC Apex this past Saturday night in Vegas in the UFC lightweight division, Jim Miller notches another one on his belt, another victory in the long and illustrious career of, what is his nickname? A10?
Yeah.
By defeating Gabriel Benitez by submission via face crank, the official time coming 3 minutes, 25 seconds of round number 3. Omar, let me send it over to you first this time. Give me your thoughts in the aftermath of Jim Miller getting another W.
I mean, I think we kind of called this fight almost to the T last week. We might not have gotten the round properly, but this is basically the fight that we talked about. Benitez came there to scrap. He always comes to scrap. There's no doubt about it. It doesn't matter if the guy is on paper better than him, worse than him. It doesn't matter. Gabriel Benitez is there for a scrap every single time. And he brought the fight to Jim Miller, and Jim Miller responded in kind. He's the dude that'll stand there and he'll bang with you as well. So, I mean, I think the thing that surprised me the most was that we didn't see a takedown really until like round 3. We had 2 rounds of basically solid striking up until we finally got down to the ground. And once we did, it was Jim Miller's world. I thought it would happen a little bit sooner rather than later, but it happened nonetheless. And that rear naked choke I called last week is what he got.
I was very happy that he got the win by submission after having just, given that soundbite that he thought he could sub Brock Lesnar. I was like, that is so fitting.
If only it was a Kimura.
If only it was a Kimura, that's right.
Did we talk about that last week?
I don't think so.
I'll try to make this a quick sidebar. Things like that make me question, like, I don't know how to try to say what I'm saying. Like, hearing Anthony Smith have that opinion that Jim Miller and Brock Lesnar is a 50-50 fight makes me think he should never get to talk about MMA again from now until he's dead. Like, I don't understand it. He is he has his own show. He has his own podcast. He's on UFC broadcasts. Like, how can we have someone who knows this little about the fight game? Like, he doesn't, and obviously he knows more than me. He should, at least you would think, more than me by 500 times, by 5 million times. But that's the worst opinion I've ever heard in my life. If they fought 100 times, Jim Miller would win 1.
I haven't heard.
That's optimistic.
I haven't. Okay, hold on. I haven't heard the soundbite of Anthony Smith saying this.
That's how this all started.
Yeah, but was he saying it tongue in cheek or was he saying it with a straight face?
Michael Bisping was literally like, Anthony, like, no, and he was like, no, yeah, I think it's pretty 50-50. Like, I think Jim Miller could sub him. Not
right now, but Brock in 2008 or whatever.
Even right now, dude.
No, I'm saying like prime Brock Lesnar versus Jim Miller.
No, they were saying right now.
Oh, right now.
Half of his intestine, Brock Lesnar, would still like mollywop Jim Miller. The thing is I almost understand. Maybe I don't. In my head, maybe the sentiment was Jim Miller, a 155-pound fighter, could absolutely give somebody who's 250 pounds, 260, a run for their money. Which a random 265-pounder that doesn't do anything,
of course,
we're having a different story here. But Brock Lesnar, who's not only a all-American wrestler, a legit wrestler, a fake wrestler, and a UFC fighter.
What did
and a UFC fighter. I don't know.
Oh, you're doing things.
It must have been that.
For those who are listening, for those who are listening real quick, Omar, when Omar puts up like 2 fingers or something, the software thinks he's giving a peace sign, and it AI gives him like balloons in his background. Continue.
It's very exciting.
Okay, hold on. When I heard this soundbite, I thought that it meant prime Brock, like the Brock who fought Shane Carwin. But he means right now. I'm like, okay, I'll give him more of a shot now. Brock is what, 50 something?
How much more of a shot, Mike? Do you know what Brock Lesnar looks like?
Yes, Mark. But don't you agree? Like it would be more of a shot now than Brock in 2008.
Like 2%.
Don't say no.
Like,
Don't stop it.
No.
I mean,
No, I'm going to say no.
It just took
I'm
him
gonna say no.
whatever it took, 13 minutes to get Gabriel Benitez out of there. What is he going to do to Brock Lesnar?
How old is Brock?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't
Brock
matter.
hasn't trained in how long? Come on. I'm just trying to be reasonable. And
I
look,
don't think
let
you
me
are
say this.
being
Hold on.
reasonable.
I don't think you're being reasonable. I will say this. Jim Miller gave the perfect response to this.
Oh, Jim! I had no issue with Jim Miller's response.
Right. He was talking
Because
about,
he was kind of funny
course,
about it, and
I
you
have
are
to
allowed
have the
to be
mentality
confident
to
in
go
your
in
own
there.
self.
Right. You have to believe in yourself. But he also mentioned, he's like, yeah, I roll with heavyweights all the time, and I sub them. So
Rolling begins on the floor.
okay. I'm just saying, it's
I
worth
did
something.
No, if you were talking about a fight, you're not going to sell it to me. It's not going to happen.
Look, and if this was a fight, that was one of the fights that we pick on this show, I would not be picking Jim Miller. I would probably be picking Brock Lesnar.
Well,
Probably. It would be the least I ever had to think about a fight pick in the history of this show.
No. I still say probably because Brock is like probably pushing 60 years old. So stop. How old is Brock? Omar, look it up.
I don't think you know what Brock Lesnar looks like, dude.
Dude, stop.
Like 6 months ago, he was in WWE picking up grown men and throwing them like 10 yards. Like, he is not a non-athlete just because he got older.
Brock Lesnar is not even 50 years old.
Oh,
He's 46.
Shit. Okay. I mean, yes, I'm telling you, I'm picking
His
Brock.
body fat percentage is like 4.
Who gives a shit about body fat percentage?
No, my point is he's in shape, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, on steroids.
Okay. Okay.
But it's not like he was never not on steroids.
Correct.
Remember when Mark said, I want this to be a short sidebar? And now it's a segment?
Sorry. Circling back to the fight.
Should I make a thumbnail for this part of the discussion?
Maybe. I mean, Omar basically covered this, so I'll try not to rehash it, but I totally agree. It was exactly what we expected it to be. It was a scrap. They were both destroying each other's legs, but I thought Jim's specifically looked like they carried so much impact. Like, he was ripping Benitez's leg. And it was pretty back and forth on the feet because Benitez has such a great chin that he wasn't really getting, nothing was really phasing him. And I think Jim was seeing that because mid-round 2, it kind of seemed like he was like, all right, I got to go about this a different way if I'm going to get this dude out of here. And that's when he really started to look for the takedowns. And in the third, it paid off for him. He took the back, and Jim Miller on your back is just a terrible situation for anyone to be in. And it wasn't long before he got the tap from the neck crank. So, yeah, he does it again. The dude will not stop. And I guess I won't spoil. I'll wait till the Sphere so Omar can make his little announcement. But things are looking good for Jim.
You just said that
we're going to have to talk about it right now.
Yeah, we're going to have to. Yeah.
So you just said that Jim Miller on your back is a pretty terrible situation for anybody, including Brock Lesnar.
Anybody who is relatively his size and who would not throw him like a rag doll.
I want to mention too that in order to like perform a rear naked choke, your arms have to reach across a person's neck. I don't think he can do that to Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, notice how he mentioned Kimura. He was not like, I'm going to choke out Brock Lesnar.
I don't think he could Kimura him either.
I don't think so either. I think Brock Lesnar would just stand the fuck up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Who needs to say things now? Omar?
I think I said
did. We're up to the matching them up.
Oh, let's match up the winner here. Jim Miller.
Thinking that Omar would announce it on the Sphere, but I guess we
might as well. Yeah. Wasn't that announced today?
Yes, it was.
Omar, take it away.
Well, it looks like Jim Miller is making his turnaround to his most wanted UFC 300 appearance, and he will be fighting Bobby Green for no good reason. Wow. So there it is.
Yeah. A little bit of a curveball. We were hearing the Matt Brown rumor.
Matt Brown makes way more sense. Paul Felder makes way more sense. Like,
Bobby Green. Why Felder? Why Felder? Felder's
they're
not
both
fighting.
I love that idea.
Because
You
they're
didn't
both
like
going to
that?
retire, dude. They're
Felder
both
is retired. Felder's been retired for years.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but you
Felder
weren't
is
into
also
that, dude. I was loving that.
Yeah, Felder has also been talking about coming back, and even that night he was like, I've been thinking about it on and off, haven't really been putting too much into it, but to fight Jim Miller, I'd be leaning a lot more into coming back, and I think that's a great fight.
Let me just say, first of all, nobody. I mean, I love Paul Felder as much as anybody as a fan. So if he does come back, I would be thrilled. I'm just saying,
he's in the pool, right? Like he already made that decision.
he is?
There's no pool
Paul Felder?
anymore.
What do you mean pool?
Well, he was in the pool before
The
USADA
USADA
went
pool.
away, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, he announced that like 6 months back. that
Oh,
he was
back
back
when
in the pool.
USADA was still there.
Yeah.
Oh, because he wants to kind of take a fight, maybe.
He was
Exactly.
considering
Fucking
it.
dope.
He wanted the option to do it if he wanted to do it, so he put himself back in the pool.
Dude, Paul Felder versus Barboza, one of my favorite fights ever.
Yeah.
Which one?
What a fuck. They fought twice.
Yeah.
How dare you? How dare you correct me live? I think their second one then is one I'm probably thinking about.
But yeah, I think that for whatever reason, they wanted Jim Miller to be fighting a ranked fighter. Because in Dana's announcement, he was very sure to say, like, Jim Miller will be trying to break into the rankings. So, like, I think that might have played a role in it.
Okay.
He's going to try to break into the rankings during his retirement fight?
Has he said that, though? That it's his retirement fight?
Has everybody just been saying that for him? Or
Correct.
has he been alluding to it? Or
I haven't heard him say shit like that.
Well, Paul Felder has a BFA in acting just like me. You know who doesn't have a BFA in acting? Jim Miller, for sure, does not. You know who else does not have a BFA in acting? Brock Lesnar. That's why they're the perfect matchup.
He's a great actor, though.
I feel like
Isn't
Brock
he?
Lesnar's been in a few movies already.
It's true. Anyway, do you guys have any names you want to throw out there for Gabriel Benitez's potential next opponent?
I'll throw him Trevor Peak. I feel like that would be a hell of a scrap.
I like it.
I hope Benitez is still around and he doesn't get a pink slip. If he doesn't, I would like to see him against Michael Johnson.
Ooh. I'd watch that.
I think that's a fight he could definitely win at this point, to be honest.
Fuck no. Don't you dare say that.
You heard me. I said what I said.
Let's go now to the bantamweight bout that went down between Mario Bautista and Ricky Simon. And Mario Bautista walked away with his hand raised, getting the decision win unanimously. The scorecards read 30-27, 30-27, and a 29-28, all for the winner by UD Mario Bautista. Mark, we went into this. I think we were all kind of the same mind, thinking that this was a pretty close fight on paper. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, and we all got it wrong, though. We all went Simone.
Yeah.
And it was impressive from, they were saying Bautista was how they were going with it. But yeah, I mean, this was a good fight. The pace was so high, but I also feel like it was the pace that ended up being a major differentiator because one guy had a full 15 minutes at that pace in his bag, and the other one really didn't. As much as Simone kept pushing in spurts to the bell, you could see it in round 3, even at moments in round 2, you could see that he was feeling that pace, whereas Bautista just was constantly in his face, putting hands out there, not letting up, making Simone move, making him think. He was also stuffing takedowns, which will wear on you. And of course, Simone did get him down at times too. He did have some success there. But for the most part, I think if you told Bautista that that's how the takedown D was going to go, he would have taken it because he really was making Simone work. And he really broke through here. I mean, that was impressive from him, especially coming off his last fight where he kind of eked past who was it? Damon Blackshear, right? And almost, I feel like dialed back the buzz on him because people were like, man, I thought that was going to be like a clear W for him. And it really was pretty tight. And then he comes back here and really puts it on Ricky Simon. So he has definitely broken through onto the bantamweight map, and we'll see what's next for him. But that was a big one.
Omar, your thoughts of how this fight played out?
Yeah, it was Damon Blackshear was his last fight. It's a good fight, man. I mean, it was a tight scrap. I think, like we talked about last week. I think Mark already kind of alluded to the fact that Bautista had a better handle on the pace and on the gas tank. But the other thing that I thought was super impressive was his technique. I thought he had tailor-made his game plan around Ricky Simón and really had an answer for all of the things that Ricky Simón kind of brings to the table, right? He was able to stuff a lot of the takedowns. He was using knees early on, try to counter takedowns and try to counter the forward movement, trying to time them properly. He fucked up a little bit in the first round, which is why I think those knees stopped coming as much. But the thing that I thought that was great about that was that he was able to adjust. He didn't have just the knee, right? He didn't have one thing ready for Simón. He had a number of things that he was ready for. So when his knees didn't work, in the actual fight, we were able to move on to other things that were working properly. His 1-2s down the pipe were nasty, really, really nasty. Kept it very simple, but kept it very crisp. But Bautista took shots, man. He took shots. He was bleeding through his nose. I think at one point he probably couldn't breathe through his nose properly, and he was breathing through his mouth. So it was a hard-fought fight, but I thought Bautista took those rounds 1, 2, and 3 very clearly, but very hard fought nonetheless. So it was a great fight to watch, and definitely a really good performance from Bautista.
Mark, Bautista walks away with the W, improves his career record to a very nice 14-2 as a pro. Watch out. Who should he fight next, in your opinion?
So, I mean, it's a little aggressive name value wise, but I would love to see him and Dominic Cruz. I just think that's such an interesting style matchup. Granted, I don't think Dom takes that fight just because the name I think is not quite there yet for Mayra Bautista. So that aside, I do like his call out of Rob Font. I also wouldn't mind like a Jonathan Martinez. But the point being, he's there, ranked opponent level next fight.
Love it. Omar, any thoughts?
I'm kind of in the same boat, to be honest. I think I liked his call out of Rob Font. I thought it was a perfect spot that he was calling out to. But again, just like Mark said, if you threw in a Jonathan Martinez or Dom Cruz isn't a bad one either. I don't think he takes it just because of the name value, but he's in that area for sure, and I think it's a good moment for him to be climbing the ladder where he's at.
For sure. Anybody for Ricky Simón, Omar? I don't think Ricky Simón's going anywhere.
I mean, Ricky Simón for me,
in a row.
Yeah, and I'm not really going to give him somebody who's very easy, unfortunately, but I thought him against Montel Jackson would be a good fight.
And to your point, Mark, the last time he lost 2 in a row against Faber and Rob Font, he went on a 5-fight win streak right after that. And now he's done another 2-fight losing little skid. So how do you think he responds, Mark? And give me your idea for the next opponent.
So I do think he looked really good prior to this 2-fight skid that he's on. So I don't want to move him down too much. I feel like I'm going to give him one more at kind of this similar level before I go kind of kicking him out. So I'll go with whoever loses this upcoming Pedro Munoz versus Kyler Phillips fight.
Okay. All right. Moving along. Trying to keep a good clip to this show. This will be the last fight that we kind of give a fuller recap to, and then we're going to jump into the lightning round. But here we go in the middleweight division. Brunno, the Hulk Ferreira, gets it done over Phil Hawes by knockout towards the very end of the first round. The official time, 4:55 of round 1. Omar, what were your thoughts of how this finishing sequence played out? And another tough loss for Phil Hawes.
How do you think it worked out for him, Mark?
I mean, of course he was going to get knocked out, guys. Who would think otherwise?
I mean, the jaw of Phil Hawes strikes again, man. To his credit, he ate a couple of shots before he went completely limp. But I mean, it was what we talked about, man. It just Phil Hawes's defenses aren't good enough to compensate for what is seemingly his inability to take a large amount of damage. Now, I say this full knowing that any one of us could take none of the damage.
Of course.
Full knowing. So I'm not talking too much shit about Phil Hawes.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Every word any of the three of us say on the show is saturated in the caveat that we would all get knocked out with a jab.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it was rough for Phil Hawes. I was expecting it though, right? I think we all talked about it last week. I don't see where Phil Hawes goes from here, to be honest. I don't know what the future holds for him. I can't imagine that he'll be in another UFC fight at this point.
Okay, Mark, give me your thoughts of how this fight played out and how this round played out, how the fight played out, and ultimately how this finish played out.
Not well. For my money. Yeah, this fight came on, and I was really sitting there like, here we go. Phil Hawes is about to show all these haters that he's still a quality middleweight, and then he just took another nap. So I guess it really is over for Phil Hawes. He just can't take these shots, and it's a shame because he has a ton of skills, and if you put the chin aside, he is better overall than a bunch of these guys, but it seems like it just doesn't matter anymore because he never lasts long enough to be able to show it. So I guess we are at the end of Phil Hawes. Ferreira did also do a great job here. I don't want to make it seem like it's just all about Phil Hawes not being able to take a shot. He showed why he's the Hulk. He bounced back in a big way after he got finished for the first time in his last fight. And he even showed you something taking Phil down and holding him down for a little bit, having some success leaning on his judo background. So maybe he's, a little bit more than the killer be killed brawler that he had looked like to this point. So great job from him to legitimize himself a bit in this fight. But yeah, the story is Phil. And like Omar said, that may be the end of the story. I'm not sure he gets another one.
Just to quickly go through his UFC record thus far, he was 7-2 going into Contender Series that he wins by knockout on Contender Series. Oh, real quick, 7-2, and every single one of his victories came by knockout, which is still the case, I believe. No, I'm not. No, it's not. I'm wrong. But going into the UFC, all his wins were by knockout. Knocks out his opponent on Contender Series. Knocks out his first opponent in the UFC. Phil Hawes had some hype to his name, did he not?
He did.
Oh, for sure. He
did.
Yep. He defeats his next two opponents by decision. So now he's 3-0 to start out his UFC campaign. 4-0 if you want to throw in the Contender Series win.
And one of those opponents was Nasruddin Imavov.
Yes.
And you have to remember, Phil Hawes at the time, when he was first coming up as a contender, as somebody who was a prospect, he was an elite level college wrestler that people had their eye on, that he was coming in. Like, he had a base that everybody thought he could succeed in when he came to mixed martial arts, but he hasn't capitalized on it, I think, the way that everybody was expecting.
There are like training room stories of Phil Hawes and people being sure that he was going to be a superstar because of the way he dominated guys.
Yeah, I mean, and also like his physique, he's such a specimen. He has great power, but to that point, I mean, look, my takeaway also for Phil Hawes, he's a guy who had quite a bit of hype, a lot of potential to say the least. But middleweight to me is like that first division as you're going up in weight. Middleweight is that first division where these are all big guys, and just about everybody looking down the roster of the division, just about everybody is a knockout threat. And even a guy like him can come into the UFC with some hype, rattle off 3 victories, but then just run into just unfortunate outcomes in a string of fights. And he might be out of the UFC at this point.
Even that first loss in the UFC to Chris Curtis.
Yes.
He was piecing up Chris Curtis.
That's
until he got dropped. So it was kind of like, all right, he just got caught, but he was looking amazing in that fight. And then he came back and finished a round win. And it was like, we're fine. And then boom, this 3 in a row where it's just been 3 straight deaths.
Yeah. Yes, 3 straight deaths, and now 4 of his last 5, all by knockout. He very well could be fighting in the PFL next year. Who knows?
It's a concern, honestly, though, the way that, I said this last week, man, the way he goes out, it just makes me feel like there's something wrong there.
Right.
Like, I understand what we're doing here. I understand people go out all the time and all that stuff, but like, dude, it's literally like a switch. Like, his body goes limp every time. And if we look back, like, he didn't get hit super clean. Like, it was, it bounced off his temple. It was a bad shot. Don't get me wrong. But it's not like Josh Emmett crashing his whole fist into Bryce Mitchell's brain, right? Like, it wasn't the same thing. That shot, you expect, all right, he's totally out. But like, Phil Hawes goes out sometimes with like the slightest of hits, and it's wild, man.
Yeah.
Like, I really hope he can figure that out, and it's nothing that's more serious than just, I guess he just doesn't have a chin, but it just seems like it's something like, more.
He doesn't like get stunned and get hurt and then get swarmed. He just gets like one shot and the lights go out.
Oh yeah,
seemingly, maybe his poker face is better than even we realize. Maybe he is stunned and we don't even know it. But it just seems like he just goes from awake to asleep real quick.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about Bruno Ferreira real quick, because he did look good in this fight. Credit to him. Mark, give me the name of who you think Ferreira could fight next at 185.
He made the job easy because he called out Shar Bullet, and I do like that fight. I tried to look and say, I can find something better than this. And as I looked through, I was like, you know what? I'm not sure that I can. So that's what I'm going to go with.
Omar, any other ideas?
For Ferreira, I had Gerald Meerschaert.
Okay. I like that. It's a good step up and a good style matchup there with a knockout threat and a guy who's going to look to grapple in Meerschaert. Anything you guys want to say about Phil Hawes's potential next matchup if he is still in the UFC?
Yeah, I wrote one in case they do decide to give him one more. And if they do, I am going to stay away from people who can knock him out, at least for one fight, since they seem to be feeding him knockout artists. I will go with whoever loses the upcoming Andre Petroski and Jacob Malkoun matchup.
Okay. Omar, what do you think of that?
I think we're done. I think we're done.
You just say no mas.
I knew Omar was not going to have a matchup.
Come on, dog. What am I going to get into the fight for? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Can't do it.
Saw that coming.
Okay, let's jump into our lightning round now. Mark and Omar, no more matching them up and no more talking at length about these fights. Give me your one-line quitter for these outcomes. Here we go. First fight that went down in the main card here of UFC Fight Night. In the heavyweight division, Waldo Cortez Acosta defeated Andre Arlovsky by UD. Omar, go first.
This was a very odd fight. Cortez Acosta, definitely won the fight, but it was very weird, the approach of the fight. There was a lot of stalemate moments to some degree, but Cortez Acosta, I guess, technically did more, and so ended up with a win. But it was a weird showing from both of them, to be honest.
Mark?
Yeah, this wasn't a great fight. Waldo was better, but he didn't want to take any risks to really make that clear. And then Arlovsky was frustrated by how Waldo was fighting, and even more so by the fact that he was taunting. But he couldn't find a way to change it because he just lacks any dynamic part of his game anymore at this stage of his career. So, like Arlovsky's good enough to still give lesser guys trouble, but if you're beating him in the exchanges, he can't really change it. And that was the case here. Cortez Acosta was faster. He was beating Andre to the punch. And he was content to just do that for all 15 minutes and kind of dance and taunt. And, you don't really love to see that. He could have certainly had a better showcase of himself there, but that's what we got.
Okay, the fight that was featured as the last bout on the prelims on ESPN Plus. In the welterweight division, Preston Parsons gets it done over Matthew Semmelsberger by unanimous decision. Mark, take it.
Yeah, this was the performance that Preston Parsons needed. He's looked solid thus far in 3 UFC fights, but his record in them was only 1-2, despite the fact that he had a lot of good moments. And he kind of shakes that off here. Like he really, I think, established himself with this win. The wrestling threat that he brought changed this whole fight. Semmelsberger couldn't load up like he likes to, which let Parsons find some comfort on the feet. And then he just outgrinded him as the fight went on. And Semmelsberger was tough as hell. He fought through a tight armbar. He fought through a Kimura. He even grabbed some chokes in the third round that Parsons had to battle out of. But in the end, Parsons won most of those grappling exchanges, and that won him the fight.
Omar.
Yeah, I mean, Parsons really picked apart Semmelsberger. I thought the grappling obviously was a big deal. I think, I don't know what it is about Semmelsberger, man. Like sometimes he has really good success in there, and sometimes he looks completely outclassed in certain respects. I thought it was, again, a hard-fought fight, but Parsons, I thought, clearly won all 3 rounds.
I struggled to live in a world where Semmelsberger beat Jake Matthews.
Yeah. He looked good doing it, too, which is, I think, the real fucking problem. He looked good.
Yeah. He had a good day.
Must have just been that.
Okay, down in the bantamweight division, Marcus McGee looking good, knocking out Gaston Bolaños by TKO. Second round, official time 3:29 of round 2. Omar, take it.
Dog, what is this man doing with this career? Because he is on a 3-fight win streak right now. He is fucking people up left and right. I don't know where this man came from, man, but he is on a real hot streak right now, and I am loving it.
Mark.
I love Marcus McGee, man. He is so fun. He's a great athlete. He looks for the kill all fight long. As Omar just said, 3 fights, 3 finishes. He's showing that he's dangerous anywhere the fight goes. And he made an extra statement here because people saw him matched up with Bolaños, who's a kickboxer. And they were like, all right, McGee will go to the grappling here. We'll probably see a submission. And he just outstruck him instead. And he did it with style. So, yeah, he's showing some things. There are so many good bantamweights right now who aren't even sniffing the rankings yet, and he's another one of them.
Okay, before we go on, I just want to pause. Omar, that was the best lightning take you've ever given. That was like fucking 12 seconds. Chef's kiss, my friend.
Well, thank you.
Okay, game on. Still in the bantamweights. Farid Basharat defeats Taylor Lapalus by unanimous decision, a shutout on the scorecards, 30-27 on all 3 judges' cards. Mark, take it.
Yeah, speaking of good bantamweights who haven't worked their way up the ranks yet, we have Farid Basharat. You know how you know he's good? Because I walked away from that fight saying, man, Taylor Lapalus is good. And he lost every round of the fight. It's the same as we always say about the Basharat brothers. Their blend to this point in their UFC careers has just been too much for anyone. They can find an angle on anyone. It is a beautiful, well-rounded game that they bring. This time it was the wrestling that ended up being the differentiator between the two. As much as Lapalus had incredible takedown D and get-ups in a lot of moments, it was still just that grind that ended up wearing him down. And Basharat wins another one.
Omar.
Yeah, and I think we should be clear here. There was nothing dominating about this fight. This was a hard-fought, back-and-forth fight that was edged out every round by Farid Basharat.
Yeah.
But edged out, I think, is really the main term here. Taylor Lapalus is going to be, I think, a part of this mainstay for a little bit here once we start to continue to move on in that division. I think Basharat and Lapalus, I think, are both going to climb that ladder relatively quickly. I don't think this is going to be a big step back for Lapalus. If anything, I think this is probably, like Mark said, I think this showed just how good he was as equally as it did Farid Basharat. So I think both of their stock rose that night, and we'll see both of them again in higher order next time.
Okay, in the featherweight division, is it Jean Silva?
Yeah.
Or Jean?
I think it was Jean, right?
Jean Silva defeated Weston Wilson by TKO in the very first round. Omar, take it again.
Mark, go first, because I now can't remember what the fuck this fight was.
It was the man that walked to the cage as slow as a man's ever walked to the cage.
Oh, yeah.
People's souls. Pretty scary debut for Jean Silva.
Yeah,
and he was a killer in the fight, too. He just walked Weston Wilson down and bludgeoned him. I mean, we don't know exactly what kind of talent Weston Wilson is, so tough to gauge, but that's about as good as you could look in a debut. I mean, he made himself someone you want to see next time out. That's for sure. He goes into the post-fight interview and just barks. He gave us about 20 barks and maybe 4 words. Like Bisping was desperate to get a word out of him, and he was like, "No, I only bark." So yeah, I'm intrigued by this man.
Yeah, I do remember this now. I was trying to figure out why Wes Wilson wasn't using his length more than he was. But once he got hit that first time, I think this dude, everything just went out the window. That was a very good moment of you had a game plan until you got punched in the face. That's exactly what happened to that dude.
Sure.
And he got fucked up from post to post until the referee was like, I think we've seen enough here. And by that time, Weston's face was demolished. It was terrifying. It was terrifying. I don't know. I really don't know, just based off of that performance, what the ceiling is for Jean Silva, because I don't think that bullshit's going to work with everybody, but it was fun to watch nonetheless.
Wasn't Weston Wilson, didn't he come into the UFC as a like a replacement for somebody?
I forget against who, but yes. And that was his second fight. He's 0-2.
Okay. Well, let's keep going here. Nicholas Motta, round 1 TKO over Tom Nolan. Omar.
Shit. Sorry. I was looking to see who the replacement was. It was Joannis and Brito was supposed to fight this kid.
Oh, he knocked him
that's
out.
who it was. Yeah. That's who he fought. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly who it was.
Yeah, Motta looked great in this fight, man. Motta's striking was on point. His straights were definitely on point. He was not as intimidating as the former Barker. However, Motta still looked great. His striking was definitely on point, and he caught a nice little knockout.
Yeah, man. Mark?
Yeah, props to Motta, man. He has not looked good lately. He's been on a slide. He got that gift in his last fight with the whatever. It ended up being no contest, even though he was clearly losing that fight. He gets matched up with Tom Nolan, who's a guy who comes in with some hype. He's finished everyone. He's a big betting favorite. Nolan comes out, starts walking him down from the second the bell rings, doing just what people expected him to do. And Nicholas Motta was like, I don't give a fuck about this guy. And he stood his ground and threw heat back, and he finished Tom Nolan for a huge win and keeping his job. So, yeah, well done for him.
Okay. Wait, Omar, did you go for this?
I did.
Thank you, sir. Last one, gentlemen. Joshua Van, round 2 TKO over Felipe Bunez. Marco.
Another guy that I love. He is so fun to watch. It seems like he starts slow in round 1 every fight, and he did it again here. But then he hit a moment, like, I can't remember if it was late in round 1 or if it didn't happen until round 2, but where he's just like, all right, it's not going great. It's time for me to just, go double time and overwhelm this man. And that's what it seems like he does. Like, his pace just goes crazy. And it does help that it seems like he has a great chin thus far, so he can kind of wade into these exchanges and feel like he's going to be okay. At least it has held up to this point. But he's nasty in there, man. He hooks, body shots, elbows, knees. I mean, it's an overused term for sure, but the man's a buzzsaw, and this was a great finish for him.
Omar, take us home.
Yeah, Bunez tried to use his length as much as he could. He tried to use his wrestling when he couldn't use his length. And I think it really worked out for him in the earlier part of the fight. But it got to a point where I think it looked like he had kind of, I don't want to say he blew his load as much, but he definitely was getting more tired and a lot quicker than Van was. And once the tide started to turn and Van started to get a little bit more of the pace on his side, Van just ran this kid over. I mean, it was a quick demolishing once he actually started to get his hands on him. So great performance from Van. It was a hard fought fight up until that point because Van was definitely having trouble with the takedowns and having to work with a lot of grappling to try to get back to a good position. But once he got there, man, he really made the most of it and really finished the fight.
Hell yeah, dude. All right, that does it for our recaps of this UFC Fight Night Ankalaev versus Walker 2. And now let's quickly turn to the update to Marc's rankings that he meticulously maintains. If you didn't know, now you do. And we call it the Priaulx Rankings after him. Marc?
Happy to be back with the Priaulx Rankings. Feels like it's been ages.
It sure has.
Some significant activity this week. We have 4 risers and 2 fallers. I will start with the bad news. We have Matt Semmelsberger, who took a tumble from number 32 in my welterweight ranks. He had kind of jumped up on the back of that Jake Matthews win a couple fights back. But now he goes from number 32 down to number 43 with consecutive losses here, this one being to Preston Parsons. So down to earth a little bit for Matt Semmelsberger. The other faller was Ricky Simone, who was up at number 11 at bantamweight, and he is clinging to the top 15 in my ranks. He is now the number 15 bantamweight after taking that L. The risers, we'll start with the opposite side of that Semmelsberger fight. Preston Parsons jumped himself from number 63. As I said, he was only 1-2 in the UFC coming into this fight. From number 63 up to number 42 in my welterweight ranks. So definitely a nice win for him. Puts him in a much better spot. Waldo Cortez Acosta up at heavyweight was down at number 22 for me. He is now knocking on the door of the rankings. He's my number 16 ranked heavyweight after getting past Andre Arlovsky. As much as Arlovsky is kind of a shell of his former self, he still kind of is that guy who's like right there on the door of the rankings. So that is now where Cortez Acosta finds himself. And then 2 more. We have Brunno Ferreira, who got the knockout over Phil Hawes. He was my number 30 ranked middleweight coming into this. He's now all the way up at number 17. So a pretty significant jump for Brunno. And then the last one, as you may have guessed, is Mario Bautista. He was my number 31 bantamweight, maybe a little lower than some other places would have had him. He kind of had a record that didn't have a huge, claim to fame on it, for lack of a better phrase. And this one obviously is very much that. So he goes from number 31 all the way up to number 14 in my bantamweight rankings.
Yep. That's where he is in the UFC rankings too, actually.
Did Simone stay at 15 or is he out?
He stayed at 15.
Oh,
Actually, he went down though. He wasn't at 15. They have him with a down.
Oh no, I know he went down. I meant like, did he cling to 15 or did he go all the way out?
No. He went down 2 spots to 15.
Yeah, there you go.
Umar went up 1 spot to allow Bautista in.
Yup, and that is it for the week.
Well, thank you, sir. All right, let's jump over to inside the MMA sphere. Omar, tell us, what's going on in the world of MMA out in the streets?
Honestly, man, a lot of people just talking a lot of shit out here. They've released some more court documents about this whole thing about the this class action lawsuit with the UFC and and the fighters regarding whether they're employees or not, and antitrust stuff and all that stuff has allowed a lot of these internal documents to, I guess, be publicized, be part of the public, be opened now. And so recently in the news, they were talking about how these conversations about with Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta talking about John Jones. I can't remember what the time frame was of this conversation. Definitely earlier on in John Jones's career, but just internal things that John Jones being called a scumbag or a punk or something like that, and I'm not really sure what we were supposed to take away from it. Like, I'm not surprised by any of those text messages. It seems kind of on par with the relationship him and Dana White have seemed to have. John Jones and Dana White have seemed to have since the Chael Sonnen thing, if not before then. So, not super surprised about all that, but that has been the dirty laundry of the MMA world this past week. More importantly, we have a shit ton of fight announcements that we're going to get to, so let's focus on what's most important, and we're getting right into those. First one we have is Muslim Salikov versus Randy Brown. That fight has been rebooked for UFC Vegas on February 3rd. Tatiana Suarez is out of her fight with Amanda Lemos. Lemos will be fighting Mackenzie Dern now on at UFC 298 on February 17th. Fares Ziam versus Claudio Puelles has been added to UFC's Mexico card on February 24th. Christian Quinones versus Hani Barcelos has also been added to that card. Amir Albazi is out of his fight with Brandon Moreno. Brandon Royval will now be stepping in against Moreno for that rematch. Javid Bashrat versus Ayman Zahabi has been added to UFC's Saudi Arabia card on March 2nd. Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev has also been added to that card.
Why won't they just make fucking Rozenstruik and Lewis? Why do they hate us?
Honestly, a part of me really believes this. They probably called Derek Lewis like, "Hey, we have Jairzinho Rozenstruik and you in Saudi Arabia." Motherfucker, I am not flying to Saudi Arabia. Fuck that. I fully see that conversation going on.
Make it there, man.
It's astounding that they haven't fought. In fact, it's so astounding that they haven't fought that my brain like fabricates the memory of them fighting.
Wait, Omar, what date was that fight?
March 2nd.
No, so okay. So that card is not in Saudi Arabia anymore.
Oh. Did they just move? They just moved it? Is that the one they just moved?
So Saudi Arabia, I guess, basically told the UFC this card is not good enough.
Mids.
And they're going to do an event in June instead.
That's funny. Yeah. That's not a great look. They probably saw Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Shamil Gaziev and were like, what the fuck is this? Like, take this shit back to Vegas.
This event.
Put this in the fucking Apex. I don't want this shit here.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, all things aside, that's actually an interesting fight. Gaziev looked scary as fuck in his debut.
He did.
And my God, they're rushing him right up the ladder, I guess. Damn.
Mm-hmm. They need some blood at heavyweight, man. It's getting weird up there at the very top. Kennedy Nzechukwu versus OSP, Ovens St. Preux, has been added to UFC Vegas card on March 16th. Corey McKenna versus Jacqueline Amorim has also been added to that card. Brian Battle versus Ange Lusa has been added to that card, which Ange Lusa is a terrifying looking human being.
He is, but man, I feel like Battle's past that at this point. But I was hoping you were going to say a bigger name.
No, I didn't. I was not. The return of Brad Riddell is here, though.
Oh, nice.
I felt like that wasn't a long break, but maybe it was, and time just slipped away from me. But he will be fighting. He'll be fighting Thiago Moises on March 16th.
Nice.
It's a good return fight.
Nice. His last fight was November 22. So yeah, more than a year.
More than a year. Yeah. All right. Tai Tuivasa versus Marcin Tybura. That fight is going down also on March 16th.
Nice.
Next on the list here, we have Muhammad Usman versus the ever graceful Chris Barnett. That fight has been added to UFC's Vegas card on March 23rd. Amanda Ribas versus Rose Namajunas has also been added to that card and will be headlining that Vegas card on March 23rd. Nursultan, no, I made that up. Nursultan Ruziboev versus Cedricus Dumas has been added to UFC's Atlantic City card on March 30th, along with Chidi Nchikwani versus Reese McKee. Julio Arce versus the return of Herbert Burns. I don't think we've seen him in a couple of years either, for that matter. Yeah, I thought he was done, to be honest. Sean Brady versus Vicente Luque apparently will be headlining UFC Atlantic City. So that will be your big fight that night. Continuing right along, we have Sangwoo Choi versus Morgan Charrieri. That can't be it, but that's all I got. That fight will be happening on UFC Vegas in April, on April 6th. Ignacio Bahamondes versus Christos Giagos will also be going down in that card on April 6th. Alexander Hernandez versus Damon Jackson will be going down on that card, which is a wild little fight, for being completely honest. My queen, Norma Dumont, will be facing Germaine Durandame. That will be going down April 6th. The return of Germaine Durandame off of maternity leave, as well as, I think, overall pandemic fuckery, I feel like. Can't remember.
I love that you called it maternity leave, like she's getting paid, like it's paid time off.
Well, I think she was, though, technically, because she's also still a cop up there, so she probably did have some maternity leave.
I totally forgot that she's a cop.
So, still right. And then we have a couple of announcements for UFC 300, and then we have a whole other card to announce. So here we go. Zhang Wei Li versus Yan Xiaonan. That fight will be officially happening at UFC 300 on April 13th. That is the first champion versus first Chinese versus Chinese championship fight in the UFC's history. We have Cody Garbrandt versus Davison Figueiredo. That has also been added to UFC's 300 card. Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway will be throwing down for the BMF title on UFC 300. And Jim Miller, like we said before, will be fighting Bobby Green on that card as well. Maybe it's his last fight. Maybe it's not. Who the hell knows? But Jim Miller wanted to be at UFC 300 because he was also on UFC 200. Was he also at UFC 100?
Yep.
He was.
Yep. Him and Brock are the only two guys that were on 100 and 200. So
you heard speculation that Brock is supposedly be coming back for 300.
Yeah, I doubt it, but that's why people have been talking about getting Jim and Brock on the card. Yeah,
I don't. You know why I don't? Because USADA's not around anymore. I fully believe that it is a possibility for Brock to step his ass in there.
Fight, dude.
Who
he could fight that would be fun? Derek Lewis.
Oh my God! Don't do that to Derek. Don't do that to Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis is gonna get double fucking legged into hell. We're not gonna do that. But I guess that's a valid point. Like, who would you're gonna give him Curtis Blades? Because
dude,
who the fuck cares?
Oh God.
What would DC say if they called him and they were like, "You want to fight Brock at 300?"
DC's back doesn't work.
Do it.
No way.
His bad back?
Yeah, dude. That was, you don't remember DC sneezed and blew his whole back out?
No, I don't.
Oh man. Yeah. He's had surgery on his back, I think, too, at some point. But it was that was just before, we're getting really off the rails here, but that was just before the either the first or the second Stipe fight where he had real back issues that just, he was never the same, he said, after that.
I'm looking at heavyweight.
Me too.
If I had to pick one to fight him, I would pick Derek Lewis. I think that makes the most sense.
I hate it.
It's gonna get wrestle fucked.
I hate it. Yeah, I hate it.
I think just Brock wouldn't stand with anybody.
Wait,
what?
I'm sorry? Derek Lewis is going to get wrestle fucked?
You don't think he
not
would?
Jim Miller?
Does Derek Lewis have a nasty Kimura?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man.
I mean, Derek Lewis, in terms of name power, he still is a top 15 heavyweight. That would work.
The thing is, if you bring back Brock Lesnar in this spot, you kind of have to bring him back against somebody who he's touted to win, right? Like you can, or at least somebody with the name value, like a John Jones, where it wouldn't really matter. But
dude, Derek Lewis
would be like even odds.
I don't know.
What if you
also sleep him?
That's what I mean.
What if you gave Stipe Brock Lesnar?
I'm down for that. Great fight.
No, I'd hate it. It's too no.
That'd be fucking massive.
He shouldn't be fighting Stipe.
He could.
Much.
Dude, Stipe hasn't
steroids. Like, come on.
Stipe hasn't fought in 12 years. So stop.
I feel like
Brock is not going to be on UFC 300.
I feel like you are too ready to give Derek Lewis as tribute to Brock Lesnar, steroids and all, But Stipe, we're gonna coddle like he's a fucking grandpa.
I don't mean that. I mean that if Brock beats Derek Lewis, it's just, okay, that was fun. Brock came back and he beat Derek Lewis. If Brock ever beats Stipe, people would be like, no, Brock needs to fight John Jones for the title.
And then we get John Jones and Brock Lesnar.
Yeah,
what
man.
is the problem? What's the problem? None of it matters anyway.
I want legitimate.
None of it matters.
John Jones doesn't even have the heavyweight belt. He has the John Jones belt. It's
It's the heavyweight belt. How is
It's
it
the
not
John
heavyweight
Jones belt. We have two completely different timelines in the heavyweight division right now that are not apparently going to intersect to each other. So we have two lineages in the heavyweight division right now.
Because
What they are.
did John win the belt as a vacant belt?
No, he took it. No, he did. He did.
Yeah.
Right?
Was Gon champ? Gon
No,
was
Ngannou left, and then they fought for the belt.
so it was a vacant belt.
Yeah.
Wow. And where were we here? What we're talking about?
Yeah. So
That's actually a shockingly good point that I can't believe Aspinall has not made in all these back and forths.
What? Oh,
Like when John is calling him like the fake champion and whatever, like how do you not say like, Bud, the belt was vacant. You randomly beat Sorogan and I randomly beat Sergey Pavlovich. How are those different things?
yeah,
true.
Like that's
You
a
should
great point.
contact him and be his PR man.
All right. We have a whole other card from a whole other promotion that we need to get into. PFL and Bellator did some crazy fuckery at the end of last year and have now produced a PFL Bellator baby. And the baby is as follows. PFL heavyweight champ Bellator versus the Bellator heavyweight champ Ryan Bader versus Renan Ferreira will be going down. This is all happening in Saudi Arabia, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
The
Late
Bellator
February.
middleweight champ and PFL light heavyweight champ Johnny Eblen and Impa Kasangane will be fighting each other. That fight will be happening at 185. Bellator featherweight champ Patricio Pitbull versus the PFL featherweight champ Jesus Pinedo will be going down. Bellator welterweight champ Jason Jackson versus the PFL welterweight champion Magomed Karamov will also be on that card. Some additional fights on that card will be Bruno Capoloza versus Vadim Nemkov, Thiago Santos versus Yoel Romero, Clay Collard versus AJ McKee, Gabriel Braga versus Aaron Pico. How do you say this kid's name? Biagio?
Yeah, I think so.
Biagio Ali Walsh, the grandson of Muhammad Ali. He will be making his pro debut, it looks like, versus Chris Morris. And supposedly Clarissa Shields will also be on that card to some degree. So a wild little card coming up. That fight is that card is what, March?
Late February. I think it was like February 24th,
February.
something along those lines. But I love it.
So
I
that
love
should be
multiple
interesting.
things about it. Firstly, I had been under the impression, just because of the general silence since that last PFL event, that like we weren't going to get fights until like May, June. You know, I never expected something this soon, so I'm really happy to see that already booked for February and see that these guys are going to get to be active. That makes me happy, because I was thinking about that, like, man, all these dudes are just sitting around. So that's awesome. I love that they did make the decision of having Kasanganay go down and fight Johnny Eblen instead of fighting Vadim Nemkov. To me, that makes far more sense. I love that they're found a way to showcase AJ McKee on here. Love that they found a way to showcase Pico on here. I like a lot about the decision making. I even like that they give us that kind of throwback UFC feel in the Yoel Romero versus Thiago Santos fight. I think they did very well building this card.
Okay, what else?
Oh, that's it. That's all I got, baby.
Oh.
We're done.
Oh, but we have just begun. All right, boys, let's look ahead to this coming weekend's awesome pay-per-view UFC 297 Strickland versus Du Plessis. Sean Strickland, what a year he had in 2023. And now he's come out on the other side of it as a pretty big star in the sport and in the promotion. And he's putting his belt on the line, his newly won belt, who He took it off of the great Israel Adesanya last year, and his first title defense will be against Dricus du Plessis, a man who every MMA fan, like me at one point or another, called him Dricus du Plessis. But now we all know his name because he himself has made himself into quite a bit of a middleweight star and darling in the UFC as well. And these two gentlemen are headlining UFC 297, going down at the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. That was a really bad Canadian accent. I'm sorry. Before we get to the main event, we're going to talk about a handful of fights on this pay-per-view card. And before we get to those, are there any other fights or fighters that you guys want to quickly spotlight for our viewers and listeners to say, hey, make sure you check this one out on Saturday? Mark?
It's not a crazy stacked undercard by any means. I think we're going to talk about one of these prelims here and the main card, and that's all we're going to really break down. I will say I'm interested to see Brad Katona. Obviously, he has just become the first guy to ever win tough twice. They're giving him Garrett Armfield in his first non-tough fight here. So we'll see how he does there. I do expect that he can get past Armfield. I also am intrigued to see Sam Patterson up at welterweight. He's a guy that came in with some hype at lightweight. He was huge for the division, got smoked by Yanal Ashmos in minutes, and now he's moving up. He thinks that the weight cut was having too much of an impact on his chin, and he does have a pretty dangerous game, but he's fighting another huge knockout threat in Johan Lines, so I'm pretty interested to see how Patterson looks in that fight, if he just gets dropped again or if he can actually showcase his skill set. But yeah, I mean, some other ones, I won't say them all for Omar, but yeah, it's not the most name value undercard there ever was.
Yeah,
Nice.
the only other fight that I'm really looking forward to is the Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Priscilla Cachoeira fight. That's a damn good fight. That's the second fight on the card, which I'm a little surprised about. Both of them have pretty good name value, so I'm a little surprised there, but it's still going to be a good fight nonetheless.
Yeah, I agree. That's the other one I was going to say. I figured I'd leave you that one.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah,
all right, let's get into these.
Because they'll both be zombie-ish at times.
Let's get into these previews, gentlemen. The first and only prelim fight that we are going to talk about, as Mark said, is in the featherweight division. Charles Jourdain taking on Sean Woodson. So, Charles Air Jourdain, the 28-year-old, who will be fighting in his home country for this one. He is from Quebec, Canada. As a pro, he's 15-6 with one draw, 13 finishes out of those 15 wins, 8 of those being knockouts. And he'll be going into this fight riding back-to-back wins against Kron Gracie and Ricardo Ramos, which was back in September. Taking on the very interesting and intriguing fighter in Sean the Sniper Woodson, the 31-year-old from St. Louis, Missouri, USA. A very long featherweight, standing 6 feet 2 inches tall. His professional record stands at 10 victories with 1 defeat and 1 draw, with 6 of those wins coming by way of decision. All right. Most recently, he defeated by UD that relatively new UFC fighter who has a last name that I won't try to pronounce, Bazukja or something like that.
Yeah, Dennis Bazukja.
I said I wouldn't try to pronounce it, and then I immediately tried to pronounce it. How about that? How about that? Mark, start us off here. Give us your take and your pick for Charles Air Jourdain versus Sean the Sniper Woodson.
So I'll tell you right out of the gate, I think I struggled with this card more than any other card we have ever done. I was torn on 6 out of 6 of these fights, like badly torn. These were all so hard for me to make a call on. And this one is no different. So betting odds-wise, Jourdain is a decent favorite. He's minus 190. Sean Woodson is plus 150 on the other side. Sean Woodson is going to have a 5-inch height and a 9-inch reach advantage. He kind of always does, but that is still so damn much. And yeah, as I said, I'm struggling. Individually, I like Charles Jourdain more as a fighter. He impresses me more. I want to go with him here simply because of that. But I don't know. Woodson is going to be pretty comfortable on the feet, operating with that huge size and huge reach in his favor. And on top of that, he's pretty good at keeping things standing and even at reversing positions and getting up if it does get taken to the mat, because that length kind of works in his favor in the grappling positions too. And we've seen Jourdain look underwhelming before, and as much as I don't want it to be the case here, I'm kind of afraid that this size situation is going to make it into one of those where he just has one of those fights where his game isn't working as well as he's used to it working, and he kind of looks underwhelming. With all that said, I still kind of want to say that, like, even though I could see him struggle, he still just finds a finish at some point, because he is pretty dynamic in that regard, whether it's knockout or submission. But I don't know. I'm torn, and for some reason, I'm kind of seeing the struggling aspect is how this plays out. So I'm going to go with a Sean Woodson decision, and I hate it already.
Yeah. I also think this is going to go to decision, man. I think this is going to be a hard-fought fight. I think it's really going to come down to who's going to be more technical. Both of these guys, I think both of them have decent defense. I don't think either one of them is going to get lit up to any extent. Sean Woodson has continuously shown that he's very smart in the way that he approaches his striking as well as his defense. Jourdain is the one, I think, out of the two of them who probably gets a little bit more wild than the other. Has found himself in firefights, will put himself in positions to get a little crazy and put himself in vulnerable spots. I just trust Sean Woodson a little bit more at this point to not do that, and potentially even take advantage of moments where Charles Jourdain does do that. So I'm going to go with decision here. Like I said, I think Charles Jourdain is pretty tough dude. Definitely possible for Sean Woodson to come out with a finish, but I think it's probably going to go to decision. So I'll go Sean Woodson by unanimous.
And the three of us are unanimous. As much as it pains me to pick against my guy, sure. Yes, as much as it pains me to pick against my guy, Charles Jourdain, I had the exact same line of logic as you guys. I just think that there's something that's going to be awkward about his style and attributes, this being Sean Woodson, in this fight against the 5'9" Charles Jourdain. And I just see this turning into a Sean Woodson fight. And you guys know, I'm a Charles Jourdain guy. But, yeah, I'm going to go with the sniper on this one by UD as well. We are unanimous.
Yeah, I thought there was a shot Omar would go Woodson. I thought there was zero chance of you going Woodson.
All right.
Very interesting.
Moving on to a very, very interesting fight. By the way, this main card of this pay-per-view is very nice.
It kind of annoys me that this is not the feature fight, but I guess it doesn't have a Canadian, and that's why.
I'm with you. That's true. Yeah, maybe you're right. All right. Also in the featherweight division, a massive fight. Almighty Arnold Allen taking on Movsar Evloev. So, Arnold Allen, the 29-year-old out of Suffolk, England, 19-2 as a pro, with 11 finishes, 7 of those being knockouts. Looking to get back in the win column after suffering only his second loss of his entire career as a pro at the hands of Max Holloway back in April of last year. So almost close to a year since we've seen Almighty in the cage. And welcoming him back will be the Russian Movsar Evloev, 29 years old. I should say also 29 years old, fighting out of Russia, like I just said, undefeated, 17-0, with 3 knockout wins, 4 submission wins, and 10 decision wins. He has not lost ever. So here we go. I should also say, his last victory was against Diego Lopez back in May of 2023. Omar, start us off this time. Give us your take and your pick of Movsar Evloev taking on Arnold Almighty Allen.
I think it's a great fight. I love me some Arnold Allen though, man. This is a really difficult fight for me to pick though, definitely because both of these guys are extremely elite and extremely good at what they do. Evloev is definitely the kind of guy that will take you down and hold you down if he can. Arnold Allen though is a very well-rounded fighter. I think we saw obviously his performance against Max Holloway. It definitely showed that he's got holes in his game that he needs to shore up. I just don't think that those holes are some that Evloev is going to be able to expose the way that Max Holloway did. I think that Arnold Allen is a better fighter than Evloev. I think he's more well-rounded than Evloev. I think it will be a tough fight. I don't think he'll dominate the fight, but I do think that he'll edge out these rounds and edge out the fight. So I'm going to go with Arnold Allen by unanimous decision.
Okay, Mark.
So the odds, you may have heard these numbers before. One fight ago, the favorite is minus 190, which is Evloev, and the underdog is plus 150, which is Allen. 1 inch of height for Allen, but 2.5 inches of reach for Evloev. And yeah, this fight's impossible. It's another really good fight. It's one of those matchups where if one guy somehow manages to style on the other, his stock is going to go through the roof because they're both so good. Evloev obviously has still never been beat, which does make it a bit harder to consider picking against him. You know, it's always hard to call a guy losing their O, but he did look a bit human against Diego Lopez. Now, granted, it was a much different style than what Arnold Allen is going to bring, but a bit human at least for the first time. And then he's also coming off what I understand was a pretty bad knee injury that he took in that fight. So, you know, fuck it. I was already torn on what I wanted to do here, and I need something to sway me, so might as well be that. So I'm going to lean toward Allen here. You know, can Evloev out wrestle Allen and make this pick look bad? Of course, and maybe that's what we see. But I think Arnold Allen can win this fight. You know, he rarely ever gets taken down. He is a very strong guy for his size. He's a good counter grappler. He's shown that on more than one occasion. He has the better footwork, in my opinion. He's got the faster hands of the two of them. He's the one who will be landing with real power behind it. We haven't really seen that from Evloev yet. So I think there can be enough movement and, you know, kind of resistance from Allen in this fight to force exchanges and give him enough minutes that he wins here. You know, maybe one round goes badly where he does get taken down and he doesn't get up. But I think there may be two other rounds where Evloev kind of has a hard time implementing what he wants to implement. So I'm going to say Arnold Allen wins a 29-28 UD in a close fight.
I got to say, I'm a little surprised that I'm the only one taking Movsar Evloev in this fight because he is just a winner. I mean, then again, Arnold Allen is as well, being only 19-2, only 2 losses. Most recently, of course, losing to the great Max Holloway. Before that, the last time he lost was in 2014. That being said, Evloev is a grapple first, grapple last kind of fighter. Very Sean Brady kind of fighter, in my opinion. And he's going to manufacture this win, man. He's going to get this win over Arnold Allen. I think he's going to do what he's going to have to do to either mitigate or negate the striking of Arnold Allen, who clearly on paper and in practice, I think is the much more dangerous striker. But yeah, this is what I'm going with. I'm going to go with the grappler in this one, Evloev by UD yet again. Okay.
When you made the face when I took Allen, I was like, oh my God, we all took the underdog again. But no.
No.
Came through on Evloev.
Yeah. Okay. We have, where is my place here? In the middleweight division, what a fun fight. Chris Curtis taking on Marc-Andre Barriault. So, the action man, Chris Curtis, the 36-year-old fighting out of Cincinnati, Ohio. His record stands at 30-10 with 1 no contest coming into this weekend. Out of his 30 victories, 17 have come by way of knockout. Most recently, due to an accidental headbutt or clash of heads, his fight against Nasruddin Imavov back in June of last year was ruled a no contest. Before that, he dropped a unanimous decision to Kelvin Gastelum Before that, he knocked out Joaquin Buckley in December of 22. So now he's going to look to get back in the win column in more than over a year against Marc-Andre Power Bar Barriault. It's a little bit of a mouthful, man. Fighting on his home turf, he's the 33-year-old fighting out of Quebec, Canada. His record stands at 16-6 with 1 no contest, 10 knockouts on his record, riding back-to-back wins coming into this fight against Chris Curtis, against Julian Marquez, and more recently, Eric Anders in June of 2023. I will go first. This also, in my opinion, is a close fight. For some reason, I feel this way about many Chris Curtis fights. I don't know. Something about maybe Chris Curtis, who I really appreciate and love because of his story and his late entrance into the UFC after what was an outstanding record as a pro. I think his first fight in the UFC was against Phil Hawes, wasn't it?
Yep.
So here we go. I feel like the smart pick, in some sense, would be Marc-Andre Barriault, but I'm going to go with Chris Curtis because I'm a Chris Curtis guy. This is a little bit more of a field pick for me, maybe. Is Barriault going to be the favorite? I don't know. I want to know now. I can't wait to find out. Barriault's going to be the bigger guy, I believe. I don't know if he's going to have a power edge, but he's certainly going to be the bigger man. I don't know if he's going to have a longer reach. We're going to find that out from Mark as well. But both these guys carry power at this weight. And they're both relatively well-rounded, but I'm going to go with Chris Curtis because I'm a Chris Curtis guy. Mark?
Chris Curtis by what?
I'll say UD.
Fair enough. So, incredibly, I swear this is what the odds were when I grabbed these earlier. They're the same again. 3 consecutive fights. The favorite is minus 190, which is Chris Curtis, and the underdog is Barriault at plus 150.
Oh, wow.
You were right, Mike. Barriault is the taller man by 3 inches, but 1.5 inches of reach on the side of Chris Curtis. Yeah, I agree. It's a tricky fight. You know, Chris Curtis is the more proven fighter at the higher levels of the middleweight division, you know, certainly. But there's something about the size and the pace that Barriault brings and fighting in his home country that's making me a little more uncomfortable picking Curtis than I expected to feel here when I saw this fight, you know, on paper. Because we've seen, you know, Barriault can just withstand that push from guys. And then he makes his push when they try to recover from the one that they made that didn't go so well. So can that happen here? Maybe, but I want to say that he's not going to withstand the pushes that come from Chris Curtis because Chris is nasty, man. His power is legit. He will swarm you. He will not let his foot off the gas. He rips the body. And I think he can get to Barriault here. You know, maybe not the first push, but by the second, I think he might just find a way to overwhelm Barriault before any momentum can swing back in Barriault's direction, as we've seen in his other fights. So I'm going to go Chris Curtis, round 2 TKO.
Okay. Omar?
Yeah, I'm also going to go Chris Curtis here. Chris Curtis has, I think Mark put it best when he talked about how both of these guys are going to try to come forward and just see essentially who's going to push who around. And it just seems to me that the way Chris Curtis trains and who he trains with, that's the style of fighting I think that he thrives in. I think the fights that tend to prove difficult for him are guys that are trying to be more technical, right? Trying to either stay outside or stay completely inside, right? If they're trying to nullify the fight to some degree, that's usually, it seems like, when Chris Curtis tends to have more issues than not. But a guy that's just trying to go will for will with Chris Curtis, I don't know about that, man. I think I'm going to go Chris Curtis on that one. I'm going to go with Chris Curtis. I'll even go unanimous decision. I give Barriault one thing, and that's his toughness for sure. That dude seemingly is very, very difficult to just lay out. But I think that Chris Curtis is going to be able to put things together, probably piece him up at times, and definitely won't wilt under the pressure. I can tell you that for sure. So I go Chris Curtis, unanimous decision.
Okay. All right, we go to the welterweights now. Mike Malott taking on Neil Magny. So here we go. Neil Magny, the Haitian sensation, 36 years old, fighting out of Brooklyn, New York, USA. 28-11 as a professional mixed martial artist. 17 of those wins have come by way of decision. Most recently, he lost his decision back in August against Ian Machado Gary. Now, he's moving from an Irish opponent to a Canadian one. Mike Malott, proper Mike Malott, the 32-year-old fighting out of Nova Scotia, Canada. 10-1 as a pro with 1 draw also. And none of those 10 victories have gone to decision. All 10 of his wins have been finishes. 4 of them knockouts, 6 of them submissions. He's riding a 6-fight professional win streak, undefeated under the UFC banner. If you're including the Contender Series, that's 4-0. If you're only including the UFC, that is 3-0, of course. Most recently, he choked out Adam Fugit, or whatever, however you say it, back in June of last summer. So here we go. Neil Magny versus Mike Malott. And I will go first once again on this one. I am riding with Mike Malott. I bought my ticket on the Mike Malott train a little bit ago, and I'm not getting off yet. And I think he passes this very tough test in Neil Magny. And I had to say, I got to say it. I feel for Neil Magny because he had some big fights recently, and he lost against Gilbert Burns, and that was a big one. He beat Phil Rowe, then he lost to Gary. So now here we are. I don't know if Neil Magny has ever lost back-to-back fights. I'm looking down back on his record. The last time he lost back-to-back fights was in 2013, which is more than a decade ago. So Neil Magny is not somebody who likes to lose back-to-back fights. But I do think that there's something special about this guy, Mike Malott, at 170 pounds. Mike Malott, not the biggest 170er. It's a guy who fought at featherweight. The last time, the first and only time he lost was at a featherweight bout against Hakeem Dawodu back in 2014 in the WSOF, formerly the PFL's former title. So that's it. I'm rolling with Mike Malott. He's going to get it done, which means he has to get it done by knockout or submission. So I'm going to say club and sub over Neil Magny in round 2. Omar?
Yeah, this was definitely a hard one for me as well. I think where I really landed, though, was Mike Malott has the kind of game where he doesn't give a shit what your game is. He's going to fight his fight. Neil Magny, while he's very similar in that regard, I think will probably be more on the defensive and more reactive to Mike Malott than vice versa. So I'm generally more inclined to go towards somebody who is going to fight their fight. And I think Mike Malott is capable of beating Neil Magny. Neil Magny's a tough out, and this is definitely the fight where Malott's going to show where he's either ready for the real shit or he's not. But I think he's going to be able to do it, man. I think he's going to go in there. I think he is going to fight his fight. I think he is going to fight his game. I think he's definitely going to end up taking down Neil Magny at some point. And if he can do that, I think it's very, very likely that he finds a choke out down there. So I'm going to go with Mike Malott here by submission, round 3.
Okay, Mark.
So he is a very large favorite, which I got to say,
Wow.
I was surprised to see odds this wide. Mike Malott is minus 370, and Neil Magny is plus 280. I don't even know when the last time was Neil Magny was plus 280.
Yeah.
Magny's obviously bigger, 2 inches of height, 7 inches of reach on the Neil Magny side. And the question here to me is just whether or not we think Neil is reaching the end, because even a couple of years ago, I think you picked Neil to turn Mike Malott back. But he's starting to show some signs of slowing down. I mean, Ian Gary toyed with him. He looked really very bad in that Ian Gary fight. But on the flip side, as Mike said, it's not like he's on some losing streak. Like, he's still 3-3 in his last 6 against all tough guys. So he's still here. And Mike Malott is getting an enormous jump, like an insane jump. He's going from Mickey Gall, Johan Liness, and Adam Fugit to Neil Magny. Like, he skipped about 50 guys to get to this point. You know, the UFC is trying to make him into the next, you know, Canadian star. They've been showcasing him in these feature fights on the Canadian cards. And I get it, because he's clearly good. I like him. He's good on the mic. But it's very hard to tell if he's like fun fighter, top 30-ish good, or if he is like actual future contender good. So it's hard to call this with his resume kind of being borderline empty of names who matter. But as you guys did, I'm gonna force myself to do something that I think I don't do often enough when I pick these fights, which is to take the unproven guy over the established vet. So I'm going to go with Mike Malott too, simply because he feels like he has that it factor thus far in these fights, where it hasn't looked that hard for him. So I'll say he can handle the step, deliver in front of the Canadian crowd, and tap out Neil Magny. I will go round 3 submission.
Okay. So we're all going with Mike Malott here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, boys. Co-main event time. Going down UFC 297 in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, at the Scotiabank Arena. Co-main event for the women's bantamweight title, a vacant belt after the great Amanda Nunes retired and vacated. And now we have Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Bueno Silva for the vacant bantamweight belt. Here we go. Raquel Rocky Pennington, 35 years old, fighting out of Colorado Springs, Colorado, USA. 15-8 as a pro. 10 of those 15 wins have come by way of judges thinking she won those fights. She's riding a 5-fight win streak coming into this Saturday night title fight. Most recently defeating Ketlin Vieira by split decision back in January of 2023. So almost exactly a year to the day for Rocky. She'll be challenging for the vacant belt against the rising star Mayra Bueno Silva. Chitara is her nickname. 32 years old, out of Brazil. Her record stands at 10 wins, 2 defeats, 1 draw, and 1 no contest. Of her 10 victories, 7 have come by way of tap out. She hasn't lost a fight since her fight against Manon Fior back in October of 2021. Since then, she has won 3 of her last 4, with the last one being a no contest against Holly Holm, which was overturned. I believe she did not a guillotine choke, but a ninja choke against Holly Holm back in July of 2023. Why was that overturned again? Was it a substance?
It was like Adderall.
It was Adderall,
shit, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh, it was some bullshit.
Yeah,
that's
it was
bullshit.
It was bullshit.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
Which is why she's still getting this title shot.
Yes, that's true. Maybe also partly why USADA is gone, because that's stupid.
Yeah. I always hated that nonsense.
Yeah, me too. It's just not common sense. Like, come on, like case by case a little bit.
It was the same thing for me with
Adderall.
It was the same thing for me with Chad Mendez. Chad Mendez has probably some of the worst cases of psoriasis I've ever seen. And he has to take steroid creams for that shit. Sure. And he popped way back when for those creams. So that to me was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
I'll tell you, Chad Mendez, he's using some kind of creams now, man.
Well, shit. Yeah. I don't think he's putting it on his skin no more. I think he's fucking ingesting it now. But
Something. All right. Here we go.
Right,
I'll go first. I don't have much to say about this one. I imagine that if I had to guess, I like going before Mark because I like wondering aloud about who the favorite might be. I bet you Bueno Silva's the favorite.
I'd imagine
that's my guess.
Yeah,
you're correct. Would you like me to share?
Yes, please share now.
Share them early. Bueno Silva is -175. Raquel is +140.
Okay. I don't have much to say. Wait, say those numbers again?
-175 and +140 for Raquel.
So those are not super wide, right?
No, that's fairly close.
Yeah. I feel like I'm making a dumb pick here because Bueno Silva, she's not super young, but I feel like she's a somewhat of a rising youngish star in the division. And she's dangerous too. But I'm going with the field pick, guys, and I'm going with the feel good pick. And I'm going to take Raquel Pennington to capture UFC gold, especially now that the Lioness is not perched atop this division. I mean, how long was Amanda Nunes the champ of the women's bantamweight division? Like, I've felt like a decade.
For a while.
Quite some time.
Yeah. So this is Raquel's probably her last shot. She's 35. Has she challenged for the belt before? Yes. Please tell me I'm right.
Yeah. Twice before.
It's her last shot.
She?
I hope she fights her fucking heart out and she goes home with the belt. Give me Raquel Pennington. After 5 rounds, I'll say she gets it done by decision. Mark.
All right, so as I said, -175 for Bueno Silva, +140 for Raquel. Raquel is 1 inch taller and has 1 inch of reach on her side of things. I am with you, and I feel weird about it because it seems like the whole world is very bought into Mayra Bueno Silva more than I understand. It just seems like everyone's ready to hop on this bandwagon as if she is some dominant fighter. And I don't feel like I've necessarily seen that from her. I mean, I get it, why people are picking her. She's younger. She's like, more in her prime, you might say. She's finishing girls. But, are we picking Raquel Pennington to get submitted? It's happened once in her entire career. And it was at the hands of Kat Zingano in Invicta in 2012. So she has gone 13 years without being submitted since that time. That is a long time. Or sorry, 11 years. Can't do math. But you get my point.
Yep.
So yeah, that's trusting Silva to tap her is maybe asking a lot. And it's not like Silva has been tapping, great grapplers on this run. It's been Stephanie Edgar and Lena Landsberg and Holly Holm. It's a lot of people who don't want to be grappling necessarily. Now, granted, she did get Jillian Robertson back in 2018, which is a pretty good one. But there are now 20 pounds of weight between those two girls in terms of the divisions they actually ended up in. So I don't know if I see her getting Raquel. And I don't mean to make it seem like that's her only avenue because she can strike Bueno Silva as well. She actually had some good moments striking against Manon Fior. But I make this point all the time when we talk about Raquel. It's that Raquel excels at winning fights. Like, it sounds silly to put it that way, but she is just so good at understanding what needs to be done for her to win rounds, understanding what she needs to lean on to find a small advantage that's going to edge out a fight. And it's going to be tough for her to do that across 25 minutes. It's definitely easier for Raquel to play that game across 15 and, make sure she wins 2 of these 3 rounds and then it has to go her way. But I'm still going to take her to get this done. I just, like I said, for whatever reason, I can't get myself sold on Mayra Bueno Silva being like this dominant figure. So I'm going to go Raquel, and I'm going to say it gets clearer as the fight goes on and she wins a decision.
Okay. Omar.
Yeah, this is a rough one, man. I get the point about Bueno Silva. I think the problem with it though is I can see this being a fight where Bueno Silva wants to work for a submission, wants to take things down, and I just hope that Pennington doesn't get stuck in a position where she finds herself trying to defend a takedown, potentially defending submissions as well, and not fighting her fight. I can see that. I see that. I see a world where that is a possibility. I'd like to think that Pennington can find the openings against Bueno Silva. The thing that also gets me about this fight, though, is that Pennington has seemingly found difficulty against girls who are significantly more athletic than her. And you can see it in a lot of these higher level women like Holly Holm, right? Like Amanda Nunes, which is almost unfair to fucking say, but Amanda Nunes, Jermaine Durandame, right? There's just a level of athleticism that a lot of these women have that Raquel doesn't. And you can see even in the way that Raquel moves and things like that, Raquel is a very cerebral fighter, very smart in there, very much knows what's going on and what she's doing in there at all times. But Bueno Silva I think, will be the more athletic fighter in there. And I think Pennington's going to have some trouble in there adjusting to it. I want Pennington to win. I would love to finally see Rocky get gold after all these years, after all of this. I just think that Bueno Silva is going to edge it out, and I think Bueno Silva will end up being the champ. So I will go with Bueno Silva here by decision.
Okay.
Fair. Somebody had to do it.
I hate it.
Yeah,
for
man.
The record.
I know. The whole world's going to be rooting for Pennington.
Yeah, I want Pennington to win. I will take this loss.
So happy.
Happily.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Main event time, and then bedtime. UFC 297. Main event, Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis for the middleweight belt. Sean Strickland, who just won the belt against Israel Adesanya back in September. He is the defending champ now. Tarzan is the 32-year-old out of Anaheim, California, USA. His pro record stands at 28-5 with 11 knockout victories, another 4 submission victories. His last loss was against Jared Cannonier back in December of 2022. That was the only time in his career that he suffered back-to-back losses, because right before that was his knockout loss that came at the hands of Alex Pereira. After those 2 losses, he went on a 2-fight winning streak, getting back to his winning ways, decisioning Nasruddin Imavov, and then knocking out Abus Magomedov. And then he found himself in a title shot against Adesanya, and boy, did he make the most of it. Winning the title from Adesanya, knocking him down, kind of getting somewhat close to a finish in that sequence, it seemed. But ultimately getting his hand raised via decision. It didn't matter in the end. The result was the same. Sean Strickland is your UFC middleweight champion, and his first defense will be against the very tough South African named Dricus du Plessis. Still Knox is 30 years old, like I said, fighting out of South Africa. 20-2 as a pro. Only one of his professional victories has come by way of a judge's decision. He has 9 knockout victories and 10 submission victories. Has not lost a fight since 2018, when he lost to Roberto Soldic at KSW in October of 2018. Has not lost since then. He is on what looks like an 8-fight win streak as a pro, undefeated, of course, in the UFC. He has a 6-fight win streak in the UFC, now coming into his first UFC title shot coming this weekend. Most recently, he knocked out, by the way, Robert Whittaker, the former champ, back in July of 2023. I'll talk a little bit more and get my pick out of the way here. You know, for the longest time, I refused to get on the Sean Strickland bandwagon. And maybe this is a bad time to do it, but I am finally coming around. I'm going to say, I think maybe too many people underestimate Sean Strickland's striking prowess. The man is skilled at what he does. And I guess maybe credit to all that sparring he does and all of the knocking out of pedestrians that he does in training. But yeah, man. Yes. Just people walking by. Yeah. He was walking their dog. He knocks them out. No. Maybe this is a
walk sign.
Yeah. Maybe this is a terrible spot to finally go with Strickland against a guy who's such a tank in Du Plessis. Again, I feel like I don't know what the odds are going to be in this fight. I'm guessing maybe Strickland will be a slight favorite since he's the champ. Maybe he won't be. I don't know. Maybe it'll be a pick'em. Would I be surprised if Du Plessis went in there and beat the brakes off Sean Strickland? I don't think I would be that surprised. I think we always expect Sean Strickland to finally kind of look bad. And the only time that ever really happened was against Ferreira, who just flatlined him. Do I think Du Plessis can do that to Sean Strickland? I don't know. I don't think so, though. And I think Sean Strickland, this is my intuition, I think Sean Strickland is going to yet again turn this into a Sean Strickland style fight. A big challenge is that Du Plessis has a great motor and really isn't going to slow down, but neither is Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland paces himself really well. He always judges distance really well. He has some of the best striking defense in the sport. That being said, I don't think he's going to finish Du Plessis, but I think he's going to kind of run away with this one, winning most of the rounds. So I'm going to go with Sean Strickland and still your UFC middleweight champion by unanimous decision. Mark?
So you nailed those odds. They are very close, and Sean Strickland is slightly favored. He is minus 135. Dricus is plus 110. The height is the same. The reach is the same. The story of this fight is the pressure and who can dictate it. They're both pressure fighters. We know this. They both want to be the one walking forward. I do think that it's Dricus who probably comes out pushing harder as soon as that bell rings. And I've debated quite a bit what I think happens from that point forward. And I've had a really hard time with it. But I am going to go with Sean Strickland to win this fight. And I'm well aware that I'm going to get 500 comments from South Africa if I'm wrong here, and Mike as well, and maybe Omar. We'll get to Omar in a second. You know, as I said, I debated this back and forth all week. When I first saw this fight get announced, I was originally on Dricus. The more I broke it down, the more faith I have in Sean. And I'll tell you why. Firstly, Dricus, as much as he's a pressure fighter, is a crash the space fighter. He likes to suddenly shrink that space. And that's where he slams a limb or a fist into you, where he's stepping in with that impact, and he's a huge man, and you feel it. Sean already lives in that space. Unless he fights drastically differently against Dricus, that space isn't going to be there to be crashed into, because Sean is already going to be standing in it. There is not going to be this space between them. Because Sean fills it. He steps forward. He is already there, and he's going to be throwing shots up the middle. You know, nothing crazy. He doesn't throw these haymakers at you, but he's going to be keeping his hands in Dricus's face, and that's the kind of offense that we have seen land on Dricus. The bigger shots generally have it. It's those shots that are what gets to him. And then from there, if Dricus looks to wrestle, I think Sean Strickland is ready to surprise a lot of people. I think his wrestling and grappling are heavily slept on. I watched this dude roll with monsters like Chimaev and Ankalaev and look like he is doing just fine. So I don't think Dricus is going to have the success that maybe he expects to have there. And then factoring in all of that, the phone booth range, the high pace, the forcing backwards for Dricus potentially that he's not used to, meeting resistance in the grappling, I think cardio ends up factoring into this fight. And as much as they've both shown good cardio, I think that in a 25-minute, potential war, I think Sean's style lets him stay sharper in those later rounds than Dricus's, which is a far more aggressive style, and I expect him to be aggressive out of the gate. So the more I break this down, I think what I see is Dricus starting hot pace-wise and looking like he's maybe knocking Strickland off his game a little bit, maybe even getting a takedown or two, but nothing is really hurting Sean significantly or landing so clean. And then by maybe late second round, the pace starts to change, and Sean's the one controlling it, and he ends up taking these cards, specifically winning, into 4 and 5. So I'm going to go Sean Strickland UD.
Mark and I are in perfect alignment. Omar, will you complete our triad?
I will not.
Oh,
thank God one of us picked Dricus.
Yeah. Honestly, man, the last performance that Dricus had against Robert Whittaker was very impressive. And I think my biggest takeaway from that was Dricus's ability to kind of do things his way and it still works. And Sean Strickland has a lot of that bullshit as well, where Sean Strickland does things Sean Strickland's way and it works. I think both of them are very well rounded. I think both of them are probably equally as dangerous on the feet, obviously with very different approaches to the striking game. But I think what it comes down to is, I think for me, Dricus has the ability to wrestle. He has the ability to strike. He has the ability to put them all together. I think Dricus by far will have more power behind his shots. And I don't see Strickland having the same kind of success against Dricus that he did against Izzy, because Izzy was only going to strike with Strickland. He was never really going to mix it up. He was going to try to find that long range sniper style that he does. And when it didn't work, he didn't adjust. And I just think Dricus has more tools to use and will use more tools in there that it won't go down that way. So while I don't think he knocks out Strickland, I do think he can edge out 3 rounds, because we have seen Strickland lose rounds before. So I'm going to go with the 3 rounds, 48-47, Dricus du Plessis, and new middleweight champion of the world.
Okay. Wow.
Very nice. Just to piggyback on one thing you said real quick. That is the thing I love about this fight, what you said about like the styles. It's that you would not teach people to fight with the style of either one of these men. And they are currently the top 285ers in the world fighting for the title. It's just, it's cool to me that they both have gotten here doing what they do, even though it's technically not what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's it. All right, boys, we did it.
Boom.
We picked him up. We picked him out.
Can't
the winners. Well,
very nice. Yeah, I like this pay-per-view. It's like I said earlier, the undercard isn't thrilling, but the main card is very interesting. I like a lot of
for sure. For sure.
We got some good pay-per-views coming up in the coming months too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Do we know what time this is starting at? It's in Toronto. I think that's an hour behind.
Probably 10.
It's got to be normal 10 o'clock.
No, Toronto's the same time as everybody else.
Yeah, Toronto's
the Eastern Coast. Everybody else.
Oh, okay.
It's got to be 10 o'clock. I'm looking right now.
It is 10.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock.
Woo.
10 o'clock main card. Early prelims start first. So first fight of the night is 6:30.
Sounds good. All right, boys. Well, folks, thanks for hanging with us, talking MMA. Like I said earlier, if you liked any of our takes, let us know down in the comments. If you disagree, let us know down in the comments. Also, who are your picks for UFC 297? Who are you taking? Sean Strickland or Dricus du Plessis? If you're from South Africa, we definitely want to be hearing from you down in the comments. Let's go. All right, boys. See you next week.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace. Hey, there it is.